first time I saw her was a Friday in May at a roadside market off Highway 61. She was buying wildflowers with dirt on her jeans, laughing like she didn't need anyone. A Tennessee sunset painted gold in her hair while she loaded up an old Ford bed. And for reasons I still can't explain, I couldn't get her out of my head. She rented a little white house by the river with a porch swing and a blue front door. Every Sunday she'd leave fresh wildflowers on the graves of folks she'd never known before. She said, everybody deserves to be remembered, even if nobody calls their name. That's when I knew my life was changing, and I'd never be the same. She left wildflowers everywhere she went, in broken hearts and fences bent, and small town souls that needed light. She turned ordinary into bright, and somehow she found this worn out man, taught these rough old hands to hold again. Yeah, love grew where nobody thought it could. She left wildflowers where she stood. That October underneath the maple trees, I got down on one knee by the riverbank. The leaves were falling around us slow, and I could barely get the words out straight. She laughed and cried at the same time, said, boy, what took you so long? Then slipped her hand into mine, like that's where it'd been all along. She left wildflowers everywhere she went, in broken hearts and fences bent, and small town souls that needed light. She turned ordinary into pride, and somehow she found this worn out man, taught these rough old hands to hold again. Yeah, love grew where nobody thought it could. She left wildflowers where she stood. Now there's a little girl with her mama's smile, running barefoot through the yard, picking flowers by the riverside, leaving them in mason jars. And every time I see that scene, I thank the Lord above for the woman who showed me kindness could become the deepest kind of love. Yeah, she left wildflowers everywhere she went, in every dream and every blessing sent, in every sunset on the porch at night, in every reason my world feels right. When we're old and gray together, rocking slow beneath the evening sky, I'll still be falling for that girl with wildflowers in her eyes. Yeah, some people leave footprints in the dirt. She left wildflowers in my life. There's a pair of work boots hanging from the old water tower just outside a town called Red Oak, Oklahoma. Faded leather, cracked and worn, swinging in the prairie wind since before I was born. As a kid I'd ask my daddy every time we drive by, why's nobody taking those boots down from the sky? He'd just grin and say, one day you'll understand. Then he'd shift that old truck into gear and head across the land. Years later at 17, I learned the story true about a man named Caleb Ross that only old-timers knew. He worked every ranch for 50 miles around, fixing fences after storms when they came crashing down. One summer brought a wildfire racing through the plains, the kind that turns the daylight orange and makes grown men pray. When the flames jumped Miller Creek and headed straight for town, Caleb stayed behind to help while everybody else got out. And those shoes by the water tower still dance with the Oklahoma wind, like a reminder of a man who gave more than he had to give. Some folks leave behind a fortune, some leave a famous name, but some leave a town still standing, and that ain't a small thing. For 20 hours straight he worked with volunteers, digging lines and moving cattle through smoke and fear. The fire finally turned away just north of County Road 9, and every family made it out with a little luck and time. The next morning when the danger passed and the sky turned blue, the town gathered at the diner trying to figure out what to do. The mayor climbed a ladder with Caleb standing near and tied those old work boots high above the water tower sphere. Now those shoes by the water tower still dance with the Oklahoma wind, like a reminder of a man who gave more than he had to give. Some folks leave behind a fortune, some leave a famous name, but some leave a town still standing, and that ain't a small thing. Caleb never liked attention, never made a speech or boast, said I only did what anybody would have done. But everyone knew better, 'cause when fear was running wild, he chose to stay and fight while others ran for miles. So the shoes by the water tower still catch the evening sun, watching over fields of wheat and children out having fun. And every new generation asks why they're hanging there. Then somebody tells the story, and Caleb's still with us somewhere. Yeah, those shoes by the water tower still dance in the prairie air. There's a wooden bench at mile 42 along an old Wyoming trail with a mountain view. It ain't on any map you'll find in a tourist stand, just a place beside the pines where the wildflowers still dance. I first saw it one September after 14 hours on the road, hauling cattle through the big horns with a heavy load. The sun was dropping low, painting gold across the sky, and carved into the back were words that caught my eye. If you're tired, sit a while. A year went by before I passed that way again. This time after losing my brother, my closest friend. The world felt colder than the snow building on the peaks, and grief had stolen every answer I was trying to seek. So I pulled over by that bench as evening settled in, found a notebook in a weatherproof box tucked underneath it then, filled with notes from strangers passing through the years, written in faded ink, stained by rain and tears. At the bench at mile 42, people leave pieces of the truth, a prayer, a memory, a goodbye, a reason to keep moving through the night. Some roads are lonely, that's for sure. Some wounds take longer to endure, but hope keeps showing up somehow at the bench at mile 42. One note came from a trucker who beat cancer in the spring. Another from a young girl learning what forgiveness means. A widow wrote about her husband and the stars he loved to see, and every page somehow felt like it was speaking straight to me. I sat there till the moon rose high above the mountain line, reading stories from strangers who had survived their hardest times. Then I took my pen and wrote my brother's name inside. For the first time since he left, I didn't feel alone that night. At the bench at mile 42, people leave pieces of the truth, a prayer, a memory, a goodbye, a reason to keep moving through the night. Some roads are lonely, that's for sure. Some wounds take longer to endure, but hope keeps showing up somehow at the bench at mile 42. Nobody knows who built it there or who first placed that notebook down, but sometimes the best things in this world appear without a sound. Not every hero wears a badge, not every gift has a name. Sometimes healing starts with strangers who walk through the same pain. Now Now every fall I stop again and add another page with a pen, watching the sunset fade beyond the blue. And when life gets heavy, when the answers disappear, I remember all those voices that I found out there, and how a simple wooden bench helped carry people through. Yeah, hope still waits beside the pines at the bench at mile 42.
There's a pair of worn-out cowboy boots still sitting by the back screen door, covered in dust from 1,000 mornings, like they're waiting to walk once more. They cross the fields of western Kansas, through drought and rain and harvest time, and every scuff upon that leather marks a chapter of a life. My older brother wore those boots the first day he took over the farm, when Daddy's shoulders couldn't carry all the weight of keeping us strong. He gave up college, gave up freedom, stayed behind when he could have gone, while the rest of us chased our futures. He kept this family moving on. Those boots by the door tell a story of sacrifices nobody sees, of early mornings, broken fences, and hands worn down by duty. Yeah, heroes don't always wear medals. Sometimes they wear dust and dreams, and leave behind a trail of footprints for the rest of us to follow clean. Last spring we laid him in the churchyard, beneath the cottonwood on the hill. The whole town showed up that Sunday, and somehow the world stood still. Mama cried into my shoulder as the church bell softly rang, and all I could think about was how much one quiet man had changed. Those faces and hands worn down by duty. Yeah, heroes don't always wear medals. Sometimes they wear dust and dreams, and leave behind a trail of footprints for the rest of us to follow clean. Last week my nephew slipped them on, though they're still 3 sizes too large. He smiled and said, "One day I'll wear these." And I felt something in my heart. Yeah, those boots by the door keep speaking, though the man who wore them's gone. Through every lesson, every memory, his spirit keeps living on. And when that boy grows into them, like his father did before, a new chapter will begin again with those boots by the door. Yeah, some legacies aren't written in stone. They're waiting by the door at home.
There's a little red bicycle hanging in the barn, covered in dust beneath the rafters and stars. The paint's chipped off, the tires are flat, but I can't bring myself to throw it out. I found it this morning while cleaning the loft, sunlight pouring through the cracks. And just like that, I was 12 years old, with the whole world at my back. Daddy ran beside me down that gravel lane, one hand steady on the seat. Said, "Keep your eyes where you wanna go, not on the ground beneath your feet." I still remember letting go of fear as the summer wind filled my face, hearing him laugh somewhere behind me when I finally found my pace. That bicycle in the barn takes me back to who we are before the years and all the miles, before the worries and the scars. Some things rust, some things rust, some things fade, some things fade. Some dreams don't turn out like you planned.
from a bicycle in a barn. My son came out while I stood there smiling, asked, "Dad, what's that doing here?" I pulled it down and brushed off the dust and told him stories he'd never hear. By sunset, we were fixing chains, pumping air into worn-out tires. And for a moment, the three generations were standing in that barn together. That bicycle in the barn takes me back to who we are, before the years and all the miles, before the worries and the scars. Some things rust, some things rust, some things fade, some things fade. Some dreams don't turn out like you planned, but a father's voice can echo forever from a bicycle in a barn. That evening down the county road, my boy wobbled, laughed and swayed, and I heard myself say the very words my daddy said that day. Keep your eyes where you wanna go. Yeah, that bicycle in the barn became more than an old memory. It carried lessons through the years, like a family legacy. And when my son rode off alone, with the sunset painting gold across the land, I saw my father riding with him from a bicycle in the barn. Yeah, some gifts don't come wrapped in paper. They wait for years in a dusty barn.
The doctor shook his head last April, said take it easy, slow things down. But my granddad just smiled and tipped his cap, looked out across that Oklahoma ground. 82 years in those same fields, watching seasons come and go. He said a man don't quit on the land he loves till it's time for the Lord to call him home. We planted corn beneath the rainy sky, like we'd done since I was 10. His hands were worn like old leather gloves, if they still knew where to begin. Every sunrise found him on that tractor, rolling slow through rows of green, teaching me lessons he never wrote down, in ways only farmers mean. Just one more harvest, one more fall, one more season, hearing that meadowlark call. One more sunset painting gold on the plains, one more chance to thank God for the rain. He said, son, life grows fast, don't miss it all. Take time to love the people standing small beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart, like one more harvest before the dark. October came with amber fields waving, the biggest crop we'd seen in years. We worked side by side through the cool morning air, laughing louder than our fears. Then one November Sunday morning, he passed away in his favorite chair, with harvest dust still on his boots, and peace resting everywhere. Just one more harvest, one more fall, one more season, hearing that meadowlark call. One more sunset painting gold on the plains, one more chance to thank God for the rain. He said, son, life grows fast, don't miss it all. Take time to love the people standing small beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart, like one more harvest before the dark. Now every spring, when the fields awaken and fresh green rises from the earth, I swear I see him right in those horizons, smiling at what his life was worth. Just one more harvest, that's all he asked. Not riches, not glory, just time that lasts. To watch the wheat bend beneath the sky, and hold the ones he loved nearby. Now I carry on where his story ends. Through every season the good Lord sends, and when the sunset settles on those plains, I thank him for one more harvest again. was cleaning out the boathouse down by Beaver Lake, just outside of Rogers, Arkansas, when I found an old green tackle box covered in dust and spider webs. It belonged to my grandpa Eddie, best fisherman this town had known. Been gone near 15 summers now, but somehow that place still felt like home. Inside were lures and faded bobbers, a pocket knife worn smooth with age. Then underneath a bundle of line, I found an envelope tucked away. There was a photograph of Grandma June standing by the water in '58, and a little gold ring wrapped in paper with words scribbled on the page. It said, if you find this ring someday, don't wait too long to say what your heart's afraid to say. Life moves faster than a river runs, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. I almost lost your grandma once, too stubborn to tell her how I felt. Son, love's the only thing worth risking for. That note hit me like a bell. That night I drove across the county to a little house on Maple Street, where a girl I'd loved since high school days had nearly become a memory. We sat beneath her front porch light while crickets sang through the dark, and for the first time in my whole life, I spoke straight from the heart. It said, if you find this ring someday, don't wait too long to say what your heart's afraid to say. Life moves faster than a river runs, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. Lost your grandma once, too stubborn to tell her how I felt. Son, love's the only thing worth risking for. That note hit me like a bell. 3 months later, down by the shoreline, where the water caught the evening glow, I slipped that old gold ring onto her hand and watched happy tears start to flow. Some treasures never come from the water, they're the ones hidden deep in your soul. Yeah, I found that ring someday, and I finally found the words I was afraid to say. Life still moves like a river runs, but now I ain't facing it alone. Grandpa's gone, but his lesson remains, carried through generations like a song. And every time I look
look at her smile, I thank him for holding on to that ring so long. Yeah, love was waiting in a tackle box all along.
There's a faded blue suit on the clothesline today, dancing in the Carolina breeze. Mama pinned it up at sunrise, right beside the bed sheets and the leaves. Most folks drive right past our farmhouse, never think twice what they see. But that old suit's got 40 years of family history. Daddy wore it when he married Mama in a church out by Miller Creek. Wore it when he held my sister, just a baby, 3 weeks old and asleep. He wore it every Easter Sunday and every funeral in town. If somebody needed help or prayer, that blue suit showed up around. That Sunday suit on the clothesline ain't just cotton thread and seams. It's every promise that he kept and every sacrifice unseen. Yeah, time may fade the color and life may wear us thin, but the things that really matter are stitched beneath the skin. Last winter we laid Daddy to rest. The church bell echoed through the pines. The pews were full of neighbors. Some drove for hours just to arrive. Afterward, Mama couldn't bear to lock that suit away. So every spring she hangs it out and lets the sunlight touch those days. That Sunday suit on the clothesline ain't just cotton thread and seams. It's every promise that he kept and every sacrifice unseen. Yeah, time may fade the color and life may wear us thin, but the things that really matter are stitched beneath the skin. Now my little boy asks questions. Why's that jacket hanging there? And I tell him, son, that's what love looks like when a good man spins it everywhere. That Sunday suit on the clothesline still sways beneath the southern sky, like a quiet kind of legacy that never really says goodbye. And every time the wind catches it
I can almost see him grin, 'cause the best parts of a father's life are stitched beneath our skin. Yeah, that old blue suit keeps teaching us, even now after he's been gone.
I saw her standing by the gas station out on Highway 84. The summer storm was rolling in, thunder shaking the store. She held a cardboard coffee cup, hair dancing in the wind, and something in that moment made the whole world slow again. I offered her a ride to town before the clouds broke loose. She laughed and said, only if you're playing something good with roots. An old country song came through the speakers, crackling low, and somewhere between two verses I forgot where I was going. We spent that Friday driving roads that barely had a name, crossing little county bridges while the sky poured down like rain. She told me about Georgia and the dreams she left behind. I told her how I'd built these walls one heartbreak at a time. The windshield wipers kept the beat as evening settled in, and every mile beside her felt like a place I'd never been. Not because the road was new, but because she made it shine like sunlight breaking through a storm I'd carried for a long time. Now every time the rain comes down, I hear her laughing through this town like a melody drifting from an old FM. And I fall in love all over again. She turned gray skies into gold somehow, made forever feel like right now. Every drop that hits this roof tonight still whispers her name in the rain outside. 3 years later by the river, where the willow shadows sway, I got down on one knee at sunset as the daylight slipped away. She cried before I asked the question, said yes before I spoke, and the river carried echoes through the Tennessee smoke. Now there's a photograph beside our bed from that summer stormy day. Two young hearts beneath the station sign while the clouds rolled away. Sometimes life arrives so quietly you almost miss the sign. Then one unexpected moment changes everything inside. Now every time the rain comes down, I hear her laughing through this town like a melody drifting from an old FM. And I fall in love all over again. She turned gray skies into gold somehow, made forever feel like right now. Every drop that hits this roof tonight still whispers her name in the rain outside. People spend their whole life searching for a feeling they can't explain. I found mine on a roadside shoulder in the middle of a summer rain. And when we're old and the years move on, when silver finds her hair, I'll still thank those storm clouds rolling in for leading me right there.
So let the rain keep falling down across these fields outside our town. Every drop's a memory I can't replace of the day heaven put her in my way. She turned a passing storm into a lifetime, turned a lonely road into a finish line. And every night when the thunder rolls again, I still hear her name in the rain. Yes, every night when the thunder rolls again, I still hear her name in the rain.
Main Street, Tennessee, late July heat. I was fixing up a Chevy across from Maple Street when I looked up from the engine and caught a glimpse inside a little bridal shop with lace hanging in the light. There she stood by the window with a tape measure in hand, pinning up a wedding gown, humming with the radio band. A strand of hair kept falling, she kept brushing it away, and somehow that simple moment stole my breath that day. For weeks I'd find excuses just to walk that side of town. Need a coffee, need some nails, anything to come around. She'd wave through the glass and smile every time we met, the kind that makes a man believe in things he ain't believed in yet. And then one Friday after closing, as the sun was sinking low, I finally crossed the street instead of letting another chance go. We talked until the courthouse clock struck 10:30, and before I drove away, I knew I'd see her again. She was the dress in the window, the answer I never knew I needed, like a light shining soft through the evening glow. When my heart had nearly quit believing, she didn't crash into my life like a storm rolling through. She came slow like a summer sunset, painting everything new. And every road I traveled led me somehow to the dress in the window and the girl I fell into. 3 years later on a Sunday, church bells filled the air. The whole town gathered smiling as she walked down the aisle there. And hanging in the front display, where I first saw her stand, was the very dress she'd stitched herself with her own two hands. I watched her coming toward me through the tears in her eyes, and every prayer I'd whispered finally fell to life. Funny how forever started with a glance across the street and a man too shy to walk over and speak. She was the dress in the window, the answer I never knew I needed, like a light shining soft through the evening glow. When my heart had nearly quit believing, she didn't crash into my life like a storm rolling through. She came slow like a
summer sunset, painting everything new. And every road I travel led me somehow to the dress in the window and the girl I fell into. Now there's a little girl sleeping upstairs tonight with her mama's green eyes and her smile so bright. And sometimes when I lock up the garage after dark, I still look across Main Street and thank God where it all started. Yeah, she was the dress in the window, a simple moment nobody else would have seen. But some of the greatest love stories begin in places ordinary as can be. Now that old shop still glows every evening downtown, and every time her laughter drifts around, I'm reminded that forever sometimes starts with a view of a dress in the window and a dream coming true.
Miles outside of Tucson, my old Chevy coughed and died on a lonely stretch of desert highway under 100 miles of sky. The radio faded into static, the sun sank red behind the hills. I kicked the tire and laughed at my luck as the evening air turned still, and a dusty Jeep pulled off the shoulder. A woman stepped out with a smile. She said, "Looks like that truck's had enough. Mind if I stay a while?" She knew engines better than I did, had grease stains on her hands, and while we were beneath that fading light, I forgot all my broken plans. Like Arizona rain in July, you showed up when the earth was dry. Arizona rain. We found a roadside cafe open late, just past an old gas station sign. Talked until the waitress stacked the chairs and the stars took over the night. She told me she'd been running too from a life that didn't fit. Funny how two strangers on a highway can find exactly what they missed. Like Arizona rain in July, you showed up
rolled in with desert clouds like Arizona rain. The next morning brought a thunderstorm, dark clouds drifting across the plain. She laughed and pointed at the horizon, said, "Guess somebody knows our names." And for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't in a hurry to leave. Like Arizona rain in July, you turned a dead-end road into a new life, a broken truck into a story, and a lonely heart into something alive. Now every summer when the monsoons roll and thunder echoes through the canyons again, I thank the heavens for that desert road and the day you came, like Arizona rain. Yeah, some blessings don't fall twice, but one good storm can change your life.
Morning fog was hanging low on the Blue Ridge line. An old red barn stood crooked where we spent our younger time. I rolled through town on Highway 221, past the diner by the courthouse where my story had begun. Mama's porch light faded in my rear view years ago, chasing bigger dreams through cities that never felt like home. I traded mountain sunsets for a skyline made of steel, but every mile I wandered left a wound that wouldn't heal. Worked the night shift winters in the cold Tennessee rain, carried more regrets than dollars, riding freight trains through the pain. Then a letter from my brother showed up worn and stained with age, said, "Dad still leaves your fishing pole beside the river every day." I stopped beside an overlook as daylight slipped away, watched the mountains turn to shadows, and I heard my conscience say, "Some roads are meant for leaving, some are meant to bring you back." And I finally turned the wheel toward the life I used to have. I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills, to the church bells are ringing and the whippoorwills, to the front porch stories and the river bend where the hard times broke me and the healing began. Every wrong turn led me where I needed to go, through the storm, through the heartache, through the winding roads. Now the mountains call my name like they always will. I'm coming back, I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills. Dad was standing by the mailbox when I pulled into the drive, a little older, a little slower, but the fire was still alive. He didn't say much when he hugged me in the fading evening light. Some things don't need explaining when you've been gone half your life. Mama set an extra plate and laughed the way she used to do. The radio's playing old songs drifting through the room. And for the first time in forever, I felt the weight release, like the mountains wrapped around me and handed back my peace. I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills, to the church bells are ringing and the whippoorwills, to the front porch stories and the river bend, where the hard times broke me and the healing began. Every wrong turn led me where I needed to go, through the storm, through the heartache, through the winding roads. Now the mountains call my name, like they always will. I'm coming back, I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills. You can spend your whole life running from the boy you used to be, but the roots beneath your footsteps grow deeper than you see. And when the world gets heavy and the highway loses light, home is more than a place, it's the reason you survive. I'm finally back in the Blue Ridge Hills, where the sunrise paints the valleys and the time stands still, with my family beside me and the river rolling slow. There's a kind of peace you'll never find out on your own. Every long road brought me to this front porch view, to the memories I left and the dreams that came true. Now these mountains hold my heart like they always will. I'm finally home, I'm finally home in the Blue Ridge Hills. The scoreboard lights were flickering above the 50-yard line. October wind rolled through the stands on a cold Nebraska night. I sat alone on the top row where I used to hear them cheer. Now the bleachers felt a little bigger with every passing year. There was a time I wore that jersey with my number on the back. Thought Friday nights would last forever underneath those stadium lamps. But life moves faster than a fastball, and stronger than your plans. One day you're chasing glory, next day you're shaking working hands. Now I punched the clock at sunrise at the grain mill by the tracks. Got 2 kids who wear my old cleats and a mortgage on my back. The mirror shows a little gray where the dark used to be, and the dreams I thought I'd lost are staring from the stands at me. My oldest boy ran on to the field wearing number 23, same nervous smile I used to hide before the referee's whistle blew for me. And suddenly I understood what all those years were for. Some victories arrive much later than the ones you're keeping score.
life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table. One more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The game was tied in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left to play. My boy threw a pass downfield and the whole town lost its mind that day. The crowd erupted like thunder rolling across the plains. But what hit me harder was the pride running through my veins. Afterward we drove home slowly beneath the starry sky. He talked about the winning play while I just smiled and drove. Because someday he'll leave this town and chase a dream beyond these roads. And when he does, I hope he learns the thing I finally know. Give me one more season of sunsets and small town lights. One more harvest moon hanging over Friday night. One more chance to stand beside the people I call mine. 'Cause the best things in this life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table. One more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The wheat turns gold and falls away. Winter comes and spring returns again. The years keep rolling like a train, but every season leaves a gift behind. And when the final whistle blows, I won't remember every score. I'll remember who was standing there when I walked through every door. So give me one more season of ordinary days. One more sunrise shining through the window's dusty haze. One more Sunday church bell echoing through the air. One more chance to tell my family just how much I care. One more season of memories still waiting to be made. One more season watching children slowly find their way. And when the good Lord calls me home beyond these fields of gold, I'll thank him for the seasons more than anything I own.
There's a handmade quilt on Grandma's porch, folded on that old porch swing, stitched together from scraps of denim, Sunday dresses and wedding rings. Every patch has got a story, every thread's been pulled with care. And if you sit there long enough, you can almost hear them in the air. That faded red piece came from Grandpa's shirt, the one he wore out in the hay. The little blue square was Mama's dress on her graduation day. There's a bit of lace from Aunt Louise and army green from Uncle Ray, all sewn together through the years, so nobody fades away. Like that quilt on Grandma's porch, we're all pieces of something more, woven through the laughter and the hurt, through every blessing and every storm. Time may pull us different ways, and miles may spread us far apart, but love keeps stitching us together like a quilt across the heart. Last Thanksgiving, the whole family came from Dallas, Tulsa, and Tennessee. Kids ran circles through the yard, just like we did back in '93. Grandma sat there on that swing with silver hair and gentle eyes, smiling at 4 generations beneath that golden of something more, woven through the laughter and the hurt, through every blessing and every storm. Time may pull us different ways, and miles may spread us far apart, but love keeps stitching us together like a quilt across the heart. Now the porch sits quiet these days, since we laid Grandma down to rest, but that old quilt still catches sunsets, like she's holding all of us close, yeah. Yeah, that quilt on Grandma's porch still tells stories without a word, of farmers, soldiers, mothers, dreamers, and every lesson that we learned. And when the evening shadows fall and the whippoorwill starts to sing, I wrap it around my shoulders sometimes and feel the love she left in everything. Yeah, some people leave this world behind, but their hands stay in the seams. bought an old farmhouse outside of Lexington. White paint peeling off, porch leaning toward the sun. The realtor said it's been empty near 30 years or more. The kind of place where memories still creep through every floor. I spend my Saturdays fixing boards and patching cracks, pulling down old wallpaper nobody wanted back. Then one rainy afternoon, behind a bedroom wall, I found a faded envelope that looked like it survived it all. The paper smelled of dust and time, the ink was turning brown. It started to whoever finds this, if this house is still around. It was written by a farmer's wife in 1953 to a child she was carrying, but knew she'd never see. She wrote about the dog they had, the willow by the creek, how his father sang while working and prayed before he'd sleep. She said, if life gets hard someday, don't let bitterness take a root. The strongest hearts are often grown where storms have passed on through. And I read every word by the light of a lamp, like a voice reaching out through the years and the dust, from a woman I'd never know, in a world long gone away, still finding a way to say, hold on to the people you love. Don't wait too long to speak, 'cause time keeps moving like a river, and tomorrow ain't guaranteed. I couldn't stop thinking about that letter for days, so I started digging through records, old archives and names. Turns out she passed that same year, before her son was born. And he grew up in that farmhouse where she never saw him grow. The boy became a teacher and lived into his 80s, raised 3 daughters of his own, and left behind a family. I tracked one granddaughter down in Bowling Green one night, and when she read her grandmother's words, she broke down and cried. She read every word by the light of her phone, like a hand reaching out from a place she'd never known, from a woman she'd only seen in a picture on the wall, still answering a call. You love. Don't wait too long to speak, 'cause time keeps moving like a river, and tomorrow ain't guaranteed. There's 100 ways to leave your mark, most of them won't make the news. Sometimes forever starts with paper and the truth you choose to leave behind. The house still stands beside the willow, the creek still runs the same, and now that letter rests inside a frame
where no one will forget her name. Yeah, I keep those words beside the door, where I can read them when life gets hard. A reminder that we're all connected by the stories in our hearts. And long after these walls are gone, long after I'm gone too, maybe somebody else will find a piece of hope hidden in the things we leave behind. Yeah, a piece of hope hidden in the things we leave behind.
The auction sign went up in June beside the county road, right where my granddad carved his name in a cedar fence post. 80 years of Oklahoma dirt, 3 generations deep, was gonna leave our family when that auctioneer would speak. The drought had hit us hard that year, then harder still the next. Bank notices stacked on the table like a pile of unpaid debts. I watched my father stare across those fields of dying grain, like a captain watching helpless while his ship sank in the rain. By auction day the whole town came, pickups line the lane, neighbors leaning on the fences. Underneath the sky of gray, the tractors stood like soldiers, waiting for a final call. And every tool inside that barn held memories on its walls. The auctioneer climbed on the trailer, cleared his throat and smiled, started reading numbers fast, while Mama held back tears. And from the crowd old men stepped up, folks I'd known my whole life through. And one by one they started doing something nobody expected them to do. When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud. He's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind him strong enough. Mrs. Parker bought the combine that her husband used to run. The sheriff bought the cattle gates, the preacher bought a gun, not for keeping, just for saving what we thought was gone for good. Every bid became a promise written where hope once stood. Then old Hank Wilson raised his hand for the final piece of land. Silence fell across the crowd as he made his stand. He bought the acreage outright and turned toward my dad and said, "This farm belongs to your family. That's all that needs be said." When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud. He's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind
him strong enough. The rain arrived 3 days later, rolling in across the plains. Like heaven heard the voices of folks carrying each other's pain. Some things grow better than wheat fields, some things run deeper than roots. And when the world starts breaking, there's people that pull you through. Now every year, when harvest comes and combines roll beneath the sun, I hear that auction bell again, echoing across the wind. Not as a sound of losing ground, but proof that love still gathers round. And if this farm outlives my days, I'll thank that town in 1,000 ways. Yeah, the auction bell still rings somehow, and every golden harvest now.
Radio crackled just past midnight on Route 84 through New Mexico. My headlights painted silver lines across a desert no one seemed to know. I'd spent 10 years hauling freight trailers, sleeping more in truck stops than at home, watching birthdays through a phone screen, always somewhere down the road. That night a song came through the static, one my little daughter used to sing back when she was 5 years old. Thought I could do anything. I pulled over by an old gas station, under a buzzing neon light, and for the first time in forever, I sat alone and cried. That radio on Route 84 hit me harder than ever before, made me realize what all these miles had really cost me over time. You can chase a paycheck coast to coast, cross every state from south to north, but some things get left behind when your heart ain't where you are. By sunrise I was heading east toward Oklahoma and home again, past windmills turning in the distance, past towns I'd only passed through then. When I pulled into our gravel driveway, my daughter ran out through the yard. She was nearly 16 by that summer, and suddenly I saw how much I'd missed. That radio on Route 84 hit me harder than ever before, made me realize what
paycheck, coast to coast, cross every state from south to north. But some things get left behind when your heart ain't where you are. Now I still drive, but not for weeks on end. Got a local route close to town. Sometimes success looks a whole lot different than the dreams you started out with. Yeah, that radio on Route 84 changed what I was living for. Turned a lonely highway into a sign, pointing me back to my life. Now every night when I pull in the drive and see that porch light shining warm, I thank God for one old country song and a radio on Route 84. If some roads take you far away, just to show you where you belong.
Met her at exit 17 on a Sunday morning drive at a roadside farmer's market just outside of Caroline. She was selling jars of honey from her granddad's old beef farm, with sunlight in her brown hair and wildflowers in her arms. I stopped to buy a mason jar and head on down the road, but we got to talking about the weather and the places we called home. An hour slipped away like dust drifting through the breeze, and somehow that little roadside stand felt like where I was meant to be. The next week I came back again, pretending I needed more honey stacked up in my kitchen from the visits before. She laughed and called me out on it, said you ain't hard to read, then handed me a lemonade and pulled up a chair for me. By August we were dancing at the county fair at night, beneath the string of colored bows glowing soft and bright. The band played an old two-step while stars filled up the sky, and I knew right then I didn't want another goodbye. She feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like a place you've never seen, but somehow always dreamed. Like the first warm sun after a week of pouring rain, like finding your way home without knowing you were lost along the way. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train, she's a steady kind of love that stays, and every day with her still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17. Now there's a porch swing by the farmhouse where we watch the evening fade, and a little girl who runs around the yard chasing butterflies all day. The honey stand still opens every weekend in the spring, and folks still stop to buy a jar and hear the old bees sing.
Sometimes I'll catch her smiling when she thinks I'm not aware, and I swear she's just as beautiful as that first morning there. Funny how a simple stop can change a whole life's course, like turning down a road you almost passed before. She feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like a place you've never seen, but somehow always dreamed. Like the first warm sun after a week of pouring rain, like finding your way home without knowing you were lost along the way. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train, she's the steady kind of love that stays. And every day with her still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17. People talk about forever like it's some impossible thing, but forever's just 1,000 little moments in between. A cup of coffee on the porch, her hand reaching for mine, the ordinary things that make a life shine. Yeah, she feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like the sweetest little blessing I never saw coming, like a song the radio plays exactly when you need a reminder that the best things arrive quietly. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train, she's the steady kind of love that stays. And after all these years, she still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17.
There's a pawn shop on the edge of Tulsa by the railroad line, where old guitars and wedding rings wait to outrun harder times. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, killing time on my lunch break, I walked inside that dusty room just to get out of the rain. Behind a shelf of hunting boots and yellowed photographs hung a battered violin with a crack across its back. A handwritten tag beneath it read, "Not for sale today." And something about that little note made me stop and stay. The owner was an old man named Charlie Reed, who'd worked that count of 40 years, maybe more than he believed. I asked him why that violin never seemed to leave the wall. He smiled and poured us both some coffee. Then he told me it all. Back in '87, when the oil fields went bust, a young father brought it in because he had to feed his son. Said he'd buy it back someday when life got back on track. But the years kept moving forward and he never made it back. So the violin in the pawn shop waits like a promise frozen in time and space, for a hand band that remembers every note it knew, for a dream that never quite made it through. Some things are worth more than money can say, more than a price tag fading away. And every scar in that old wood sings of the lives we carry in little things. A month later, Charlie called me out of the blue, said, "You ain't gonna believe who's standing here wanting news." An old man with silver hair and hands worn thin with age had walked into the shop asking about that very case. He said, "My daddy used to play that fiddle every night till hard times took it from him. When I was just a child, he passed before he got it back, but he spoke about it still, and I promised if I found it, I'd bring it home for him." Now the violin from the pawn shop sings in a house where grandchildren gather and dream. Its melody carries across the room like a voice returning after years of silence too. Some things are worth more than money can say, more than a lifetime drifting away. And every scar in that old wood sings of the lives we carry in little things. That night the family gathered on the porch under Oklahoma stars, and for the first time in 40 years they heard their grandfather's song. Not from a record or a story told, but from strings alive once more. And every note seemed to open up a long-forgotten door. Yeah, the violin from the pawn shop came home after decades wandering alone, and the music filled the spaces time had left behind. Now when the evening settles down and the crickets start their choir, that old fiddle tells a story that survives every fire. 'Cause love don't disappear with years, and dreams don't always die. Sometimes they just wait patiently for the right hands to arrive. There was a foreclosure sign nailed to the gate, 5 rocky acres just outside Cheyenne. The barn leaned hard to the west wind, and the fences barely stood again. Everybody said, "Boy, don't buy that place. You'll spend your whole life chasing repairs." But I saw a porch where kids could laugh and a future hanging in the air. I worked double shifts through the winter months, loaded feed and fixed old rigs. Every paycheck stretched like barbed wire, trying to make enough for little things. My wife planted flowers by the mailbox, though the ground was stubborn clay. She'd smile and say, "Give it some time, good things grow that way." All we had was 5 acres and a dream, a little faith and a lot of gasoline. More hope than money, more grit than love, and 5 acres and a dream. By year 5, the barn stood straight again. The pasture turned a healthy green. There were bicycles by the front porch steps, and little muddy boots by the screen. One evening I watched the sunset fall, with my daughter sleeping on my knee. And I realized every sacrifice had become exactly what I needed. All we had was 5 acres and a dream, a little faith and a lot of gasoline. More hope than money, more grit than luck, and an old red tractor that wouldn't quit. Yeah, life wasn't easy, but it felt right, building something under those Wyoming skies. Sometimes a man gets richer than he seems, with 5 acres and a dream. The world keeps telling you bigger is better, more land, more money, more things to own. But peace don't care about square footage. Sometimes it lives where love has grown. Yeah, we started with 5 acres and a dream. Now every board and field means something to me. Every scar on my hands, every long hard day helped build this life brick by brick. And when the stars come out above the plains and the porch light glows soft and clean, I thank the Lord for everything He gave me through 5 acres and a dream. Yeah, the best things I ever held in my hands were never things at all. First snow hit the fence lines yesterday, dusting all the cattle trails in white. I was patching up a gate on the north side ranch when I saw her truck roll in at twilight. 3 years gone since she drove away, leaving nothing but a note and a ring. Now she's standing by the old windmill like she never missed a thing. She said, I heard your mama wasn't doing well. And she looked down at her hands, the same hands that used to hold mine tight back when we made all our plans. The mountains stood silent in the distance, like they knew we had words left unsaid. And every mile she traveled since then was written in her eyes instead. Under this Montana sky tonight, the stars are burning clear and bright.
like they never stopped believing we'd find our way through every lonely mile and every hard goodbye. If love's a fire, ours never died. It just waited through the cold and time, and here we are beneath that endless light, under this Montana sky tonight. Mama smiled when she walked through the door, like a prayer had finally come true. Coffee steamed on the kitchen table, and the whole room felt brand new. We talked until the moon climbed high, about the years we can't get back. Then she reached across and touched my hand, and somehow closed every crack under this Montana sky tonight. The stars are burning clear and bright, like they never stopped believing we'd find our way through every lonely mile and every hard goodbye. If love's a fire, ours never died. It just waited through the cold and time, and here we are beneath that endless light, under this Montana sky tonight. The wind still sings across the prairie grass, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. So I pulled her close and whispered low, I'm done running from what we've become, under this Montana sky tonight. I can finally see my life, not in the dreams I chased too far away, but in the arms that held on through the fight. The mountains watch, the stars still shine, and for the first time the future feels right. Yeah, forever starts right here tonight, under this Montana sky tonight.